taking a fairly simple view that the constitutional review is really a test run for whether or not there can be free and fair elections. So how's that constitutional review gone? Well, Professor Yashkai was brought in, there were thousands of submissions, it was a months and months of process, and then the whole thing was turned down. And then there was a decree about which political parties could be allowed to be included from then on, and hardly any parties seemed to be registered. So given that the New Zealand government put not only faith in this process, but money into this process, hey, that's not going so well, is it? So from the point of view of progress towards democracy, I think it's quite wrong for our government to say there's been progress. Since then, Murray McCully, I think, has said, yep, there's been some backward steps. There's meant to be a ministerial contact group meeting there at some stage, involving the Australian Minister and Murray McCully, but I think it keeps getting put off, and it's quite difficult for them to work out when to go and what to do. And that's one of the problems, what to do with this regime. It is a military dictatorship, so how do you influence them? So that's a really important question. On the issue of human rights, worker rights, well, on this question of violence, haven't we seen with Felix Anton people beaten up? We've seen others beaten up in sugar plants. We've seen Daniel Uri charged with treason, and those charges, you know, that court case yet to take place. So in the union movement, it's been not only decrees against you, meetings that you have to abandon because they're deemed to be illegal, but then when you do stick up and speak out, if you try to form a political party, they won't recognise it, and the media aren't even allowed to mention that as a political party. That's a breach. So how can you have democracy under those circumstances? So we're really pleased to be here. We have to keep on protesting, keep on raising these issues, keep on speaking up, because it's so important that we champion in the union movement and with others here today, champion the principle that everyone must have a voice and the right of people to participate in a democratic process, free and fair elections, and elect the government of their choosing is a very important principle to hang on to. So thank you very much, Si.
Thank you, Peter. Could I call on Jen Logie from the New Zealand Green Party? Hands together for Jen, please.
It's really great to be here. I'm the Green Party's spokesperson for Pacifica and human rights. But today I feel as if I'm here as a good neighbour, really, and a neighbour who wants to be able to draw attention to the experience of my neighbours, and that the fact that my neighbours are hurting and are in pain and aren't able to speak out. And I was listening to my sister just before the beginning of the protest and her saying there are so few Fijians here because they're scared if they come and are seen in the media, their families back at home will suffer consequences from that. So it's up to us, won't have to suffer those consequences, to stand up. And I'm very pleased on behalf of the Green Party to be able to take that role, to stand up for the safety and human rights of our fellow Pacific neighbours, because those rights are important. And while Brian Mura's response to the video last week was saying that that those officers were just making sure that people could sleep peacefully at night, and in response, I think, to possibly Amnesty's criticism and challenge to him, he was saying, well, they're paid by the international community to jump up and down every time they do so. That lack of understanding and connection to people's humanity, to our sense of solidarity with each other, I think shows the fundamental flaw in his leadership and his deep self-interest. And I believe it's important that we all stand up and challenge that in solidarity with each other. There's a lot of work, obviously, to be done, and I know I saw the video, some of it, because actually I couldn't finish watching it. It was too uncomfortable in my nice little office in Parliament to see that kind of pain and beating. And I know there are others, and there are other folks, and there are many people who have gone before that have also been hurt and maimed. And that this video is just what has managed to break through those barriers that
I'm the Advocacy and Government Relations Manager at Amnesty International. It's fantastic to see you all here and speaking out for those that don't have a voice. For over 50 years, Amnesty International has spoken to condemn violations of international human rights and breaches of international law, including the torture that we've seen in this video. Today, we're speaking out in deep concern at what has happened and what have been seen around the world in the past week. While the perpetrators are not in uniform, such attacks are consistent with earlier reports that Amnesty International has received of brutality against prisoners by the Fijian security forces. In particular, they correspond with the reports of 5 escaped prisoners at the end of last year. Highlighted our concerns in an open letter to the Fijian government in December. Then, as we are now, we're calling for a prompt, independent and effective investigation into these events. And it's so important that the findings of these are made public. In all instances where torture is reported to us, we urge for these things. And in this case, we're calling on the Fijian government to ensure that these serious human rights violations are investigated so that families and victims can receive justice and that people aren't acting with impunity. All victims of serious human rights violations must be provided reparation, compensation. There must be guarantees from the Fijian government that these types of abuses are not going to happen again, and that is not something that we have seen so far. In addition, it must be important to remember that the protection of these 2 men in the video while they're in custody is paramount.